Hi, this is Diane with Phil's Virtual Sewing Club. Today we're going to continue on the exploration of the Pfaff Quilt Expression 720 machine. We're going to get into the decorative stitches today, and we're going to see all the new functionality that this machine will bring to any project that you might create. So let's get going. So right now I've opened up or turned on the machine, powered it up, and I got into some of my sewing stitches. The essential stitches are here, and you got your subcategories. Okay, as you work across on the screen here, you'll find different quilt stitches category. You got the needle art stitches, which are more of the hand look type stitches. Then you've got your satin stitches, and then you get your decorative stitches, and each one of these have different categories under them, or subcategories I should say, that identify different stitches. So it's a good way to organize your stitches, and so it's easier to find some of the stitches or particular stitches or functionality that you want to delve into or use for your next project. One thing I'm going to show you right now is I'm going to get into the satin stitches. I'm going to, let's see, here you got scalloped edges, satin elements, and borders. I'm going to choose the satin elements. Okay, so we're going to select from our satin elements stitch 04. Okay. In this particular field, it's calling for foot 8, or here's the foot, and 2A is the foot number. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm going to know that I have to exchange out my foot, so I'm going to disengage my IDT system by sliding that back up and under, and then I'm going to snap on the front of the foot to release the foot itself that was on there. And then I'm going to grab my 2A foot in my storage bin, and I'm going to snap this foot back on. So since this particular foot, before I snap it on, I just wanted to show you that this does not have the cutout where you can enable the IDT system right here, and so no IDT system will work with it. You won't work with this particular stitch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and snap this back on. There we go. And on the screen, there's several editing opportunities that you have as well. So right up in here, for instance, the stitch width from point to this point is 9 millimeters wide, and the length of the stitch is 20.5, which from this point to that point, and that's all customizable, as well as it is also, you can adjust the density levels on it by clicking on this particular option right there in the center. Okay, so what we're going to do right now, I'm going to go ahead and activate these buttons right here. So it's going to secure at the beginning and at the end, and then cut it when it's completed. So I'm going to just go ahead and sew this out for you. So start at the top, put our needle down, adjust the hover position if I so choose, and then start sewing. I just sped up the machine. I'm going to click on the scissor button so that when it finishes its pattern, that way it'll cut the stitch, and there's the stitch all sewn out. Pretty stitch front, pretty stitch on the back as well. Okay. Now, the next thing in this field right here, as I go down this side over here, I can adjust, you know, the length that it will sew out with. So clicking on this category right there, And I've got these all set up to cut the thread. So what I'm going to do is, this is called the patchwork, okay? And you can do this with most all of the stitches in the machine itself, okay? So you can designate a start and stop and the length of that stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lower my presser foot. I'm going to start stitching. And when I want to stop with the stitching, when I determine that the length is good, I'm going to click on this button right there, which is the backspace button right here. It's going to cut it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and start it all over again. This time I'm going to use my foot control. And one good thing about this machine is using the foot control and also the start stop button right here, you can utilize one or both at the same time. So you don't have to disconnect the foot control for this button to be activated and to work. So it has, if you can look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what it does is it'll continue on stitching in that mode with that number or that length of the decorative stitch. And like I said, you can use this for other stitches as well. So if you got a production line going, you can even use this with your straight stitching. So if you wanted to make sure you sewed, like maybe it's pin tucks or whatever it might be, you can actually tell it this is the length that I want it to go, and then it'll stop, cut the thread, and continue on, and then you start it up again, and it'll stop exactly that same length each and every time. Okay. Now, excuse me, if you feel like you wanted to increase that, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's actually 4 repeats of that same particular design. So if I wanted to increase it or decrease it down to maybe 3, we can activate that, and it will repeat with 3 rather than with the 4 that I just sewed out. This is great for a lot of repetitive type sewing function, that you can utilize this feature. Okay, and that's called the patchwork feature. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go in here and grab hold of a different decorative stitch. I'm going to come over here, let's see, maybe in this category, let's try it. And notice all your decorative stitches underneath in the subcategories as well. Let's see. I'm trying to find a particular, let's go in here now. And you could also use these buttons as well. So if you would prefer to arrow through to find your stitch, you can do that as well, up or down, whichever direction it might be, I'm looking for an even stitch that I can show you the next function that we're going to talk about. Let's see, this one. Let's just go with this one. With oh, that's not the one I want. Sorry. I'll find it here eventually. And it's giving you a good opportunity to see some of the different stitches that are in this machine. Like I said, there's over 400 different types of stitches that you can use at any time for any of your projects, as well as lettering. Okay. Oh, it's the wrong way. I guess I haven't found it yet. We'll keep looking here. It's a nice review of all the fun stitches that you can utilize, that's for sure. Okay. We're getting warmer. We have to be. Okay, here we go. Right there, that particular stitch. Okay, so with this particular stitch, it's 9 millimeters wide, same as before. You can also adjust your length on it and your density settings as well. But under this particular setting, again, we're going to go back in there, and this time we're going to put an angle on the end point, or at the beginning point, and also at the end point. So at the beginning point, notice what it does. It angles off. The end point will angle off as well. So we're going to go ahead and stitch this out so that you can have an idea what this looks like. So when I want, I'll stitch this for a little bit here so that you can see what this formation of the stitch looks like. When I wanted to start doing the angle at this opposite end, I'm going to get the reverse button. And what it does is it angles it. Okay, and this is how that looks. So one thing I'm going to go back and make a change to is the cutting and remove all the tie downs and so forth in the cutting aspect. I want to activate the down needle position. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to do this again, and I was meaning to put down the presser foot. That's what I was meaning to do, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this out again. Touch on my reverse button. It starts the angling. Now what I'm going to do is, so when it stopped right there, it raised the presser foot into the hover or hoover, whatever position, and then I'm going to rotate, and then I'm going to start up the machine. So what you can do with this is create that box. It creates a nice frame. And when I get close to the point, I'm going to get the return button again. And I'm going to cut my thread. And let's take a peek at that corner. This is what the pivoting function with the needle down did, and using that angle right there. So you could have gone all the way around and created two more sections to create that frame that is so pretty. And the back of it stitched out really nice as well. Okay, so in this function, we can also, let's go back in there again. If you notice, there's a little triangle next to each one of these opportunities. If you hold down that button, it opens up into additional angled opportunities that you can adjust your endpoints to. You can do 30 degrees, 60, 90, and we're at the default, which is 45. You've got 90 and so forth, and 120. So what we're going to do at this point, we're going to use, I'm going to do the 90. Okay, so notice how it changed the first point. We're going to do the same thing on the end point. Hold down that option and do the 90 for this, and so that's what the end looks like. Okay, let's go ahead and, well, here, I'll do it right over here. And here again, when you get to the end point, what you're going to do is you're going to hit the reverse button for it to start doing the angle again. We're going to go ahead and do that, activate it, light comes on here. And we're going to cut. And let's take a peek at that, the way that looks. And that's how that turned out. Here again, the back. I know I always like to show the back because the back is just as pretty as that front is. Okay, so that's that. Okay, the next function we're going to get into is working with some of the alphabets that are in here. Okay. In here you got the comic alphabet, Cyrillic, outline, and script. So you can choose any one of these alphabets for you. So if you want to personalize, say, a quilt, or if you wanted to put it on a little girl's dress, whatever it might be, you know, you could definitely utilize some of that, some of these fonts. So I'm going to choose the comic alphabet. Opens up into a blank screen, and in here you can start typing or selecting what you want to put in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my name, but to do that I also want to show you that you have other opportunities down here. So you can do uppercase, lowercase, and then you have your symbols. You got your space, and you got your backspace, and you got your tack down, you've got your cut, and then you got your stop buttons, and then you got your reverse buttons too, and of course OK when you're completed. So I'm going to go ahead and choose lowercase. So I'm going to spell out my name. Okay, and then if you want to stop, you can do a space here and maybe put whatever. Maybe you can make Diane or handmade by Diane, something to that effect. But we're going to stop with the Diane and just let it go. And at that point, I'm going to say stop, and it should stop at that point. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, lower my button. And look how it walks you through it, so it knows exactly where it's at. So it stopped. I could have continued on. I could remove that stop button if I so choose, but I'm going to cut it just so you see this. So here's what it just created. I think that does a really, really nice job with forming those letters and stitching it out as well. Okay, so it's a nice way to personalize, or you can use it as a decorative style of stitch for any of your projects as well. Okay, here is another font that I utilize. I just use one letter, and it's a script font, and so I put it on the corner of a handkerchief, and so I think it's great for a bride, or for, you know, for any specific occasion that you wanted to give this hanky as, but I thought it did a real good job with that individual letter. Now, another thing I wanted to show was how that tapering looks, and here are some other stitches that I utilize that tapering endpoint. You can even do it with a column or a satin stitch where it'll taper those ends and so forth. Here's some of the other stitches, and here's some of the different angles right here in this stitch. And you can see all those different angles. And it also did it with one of these, which was rounded and it tapered off both ends as well. Okay. And then here you can see how it created you know, that square frame with the decorative stitch, and then this one here is with a satin. So that kind of concludes this presentation of some of this decorative stitches in here. There's still more to come, so I want you to come back and listen to the next series on the different stitches with the Pfaff Quilt Expression 720. So visit Larry and Annette at Phil's Sewing in Washington, Missouri for any additional features or functionality of this machine, or to purchase extra feet. But anyway, until next time.